Morning, guys. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you enjoyed your long weekend. I'm trying to think of first things first. I guess we will go over a review sheet, do crossouts. It looks like this. We have a test on Friday. And this will be our last test. Everybody yells and cheers. I know you're excited. This will be on the Emperors of Rome, or at least the ones we've covered. And there are 5 lectures that you will need to get out. Let's see. And you should be able to see right there the 5 underlined ones, starting with Roman Republic, the first triumvirate, all the way through Caesar Augustus. So you'll need to get those 5 ready. So if you need to hit pause and get those 5 ready, and then the lecture we're actually going to be doing is the 5 Good Emperors. It's the first one. It's called the 5 Good Emperors: Nerva, Trajan, Hadrian. There were 5 good emperors, and so we're just going to cover 3 of them today, and then we'll cover 2 tomorrow when I'm back. As well as probably finish up the lecture before about Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. I know many, at least one section didn't get that finished, so don't fret. We'll worry about that tomorrow. Like I said, your test, you pretty much have everything already except for a couple of terms for your test, so you should have been able to study over the weekend if you had chosen to do so. And you've got plenty of time to study now. So let me turn to the first triumvirate, and hopefully that'll get you guys a second to turn there as well. Okay, so the first triumvirate, we're doing crossouts here for Roman Republic, the first triumvirate. Okay, under Roman numeral 1, you may cross off B, B as in boy. And under Roman numeral 3, you may cross off H as in horse. And that's it for that one. Now, you might be groaning, but you pretty much know everything about that one already. It deals a lot with Julius Caesar. The second one we're going to look at is the end of the Republic, the end of the first triumvirate lecture. End of the first triumvirate. Roman numeral 1 is there. It's called the success of Caesar if you're looking for it. Once again, if as a class you don't have these, I'm sure you guys can hit pause real quickly till you locate them. So for the end of the first triumvirate lecture, under Roman numeral 1, and the only thing you can cross off is E, E as in egg. You may completely cross out Roman numeral 2 and A, B, C, D, E. Under Roman numeral 3, which is Pompeian power, you may cross off A. And under Roman numeral 4, which is the crossing of the Rubicon, you may cross off F and G, those last 2. Alright, moving quickly. Okay, now on the next one is the Julius Caesar lecture, End of the Republic, Julius Caesar. Roman numeral 1, the rise of Pompey, you may cross off all of it. Roman numeral 1, A, B, 1, 2, 3, and C. Under Roman numeral 2, the great dictator, go down to B. You can't cross off B, but you may cross off 1 and 4 underneath B. And that's it for that one. So on to the next one, which is the second triumvirate. Early Empire, second triumvirate. Under Roman numeral 1, which is after the death of Caesar, you may cross off C. Roman numeral 2, which is called the second triumvirate, you may cross off C, D, and E. And then Roman numeral 3, the end of the Republic, you may cross off B, C, D, 2, E, F, and J, at the very end. And the final one to do here is Early Empire, Caesar Augustus. Final one for crossouts. Under Roman numeral 1, Early Life, you may cross off B. Under Roman numeral 2, Military Leadership, you may cross off B, C, D, and F. Go down to H. You've got to know H, but underneath H, you may cross off 2, 3, 4, and I. Under Roman numeral 3, Emperor, you may cross off A, and that is all. So you have your review sheet. You've got the 5 lectures we just went over that you have to memorize. You've got 4 short answer possibilities. The first 3 you can already answer. The 4th you'll be able to answer through today's lecture and tomorrow's. And then the essay, which is an 8-sentence essay, let me remind you, is longer than usual. You're already able to answer that one too. You've got 7 list A terms, meaning how is this person or thing important, and then you've got 11 of the just definition-only terms. And that's where most of our emperors that we learned about fall in. So Please continue to be studying. That test is Friday. Review game will be Thursday, so we've got a lecture today and tomorrow. That'll take us through the 5 Good Emperors, part 1 and part 2. And then after that we have Thursday review game, Friday test. And after Friday, that's our last test. So any other lectures that come after that, which I want to say we probably have about 6, will cover things that are going to be on the exam. Also, let me remind you, you're thinking 6 lectures, we got a lot more school left. We do. We've got a couple of PowerPoint days. We've got a 2-day mosaic project, which is the Roman soldier pictures that are over on the wall. We've also got a field trip and then a preparation day for the field trip, so that's another 2 days. We've got lots of time for exam review. And so we don't have a lot of time. You know, after this week, we have, I think, 3 weeks of classes and a week of exams after this week. So we're really coming down to the end here. So that means those of you whose grades are getting close to maybe lower than you would like, or not quite as high as you'd like, then I would suggest really buckling down for this test here, this last test. That'll help put you in a great place to go to the exam. So with all that having been said, we're going to look at the 5 Good Emperors. I know we didn't finish Domitian, the last emperor we talked about. It was on our notes, but a lot of the emperors that we've talked about have met really bad ends. They've not done well. They have either been executed, or they've gone crazy and then been executed, or been condemned to death and committed suicide. We've had a lot of real doozies as far as emperors so far. And so something needed to be done. Something needed to change. And so during the reign of the 5 good emperors, you can see 5 good, long-lasting emperors in a row here. And that's not just coincidence that there happen to be 5 great fathers, son, grandsons. It's because they chose a new method, a new way to set up emperors. They realized the old way of father passing it on to his son was not working properly. The sons ended up being wicked or crazy, or the nephews or whoever took over ended up doing a bad job, and it became just a dangerous position to hold. So, introduction here. Letter A, under introduction. The 5 good emperors marked the height of the Roman Empire. The 5 good emperors, and we capitalize 5 good and emperors because they're sort of a title. Whenever we talk about that. So, the 5 good emperors marked the height of the Roman Empire. Okay, so for letter B, much of their success is based on their method of selecting an heir. Much of their success is based on their method of selecting an heir. Heir, of course, is H-E-I-R, meaning someone to pass the mantle of leadership down. Much of their success is based on their method of selecting an heir. Okay, so let's talk about our first one, Nerva. Domitian, we didn't talk about Domitian, but he met an untimely end. So, on the heels of Domitian, letter A, there were no heirs of Domitian. And Domitian is D-O-M-I-T-I-A-N. D-O-M-I-T-I-A-N. There were no heirs of Domitian or any generals trying to take over. So it was really a weird situation. As you know, pretty much every time an emperor has died, there have been 300 people trying to take over, and it's always been fighting, and the guy who kills the most people ends up taking over. It's usually a pretty bloody and violent affair. Well, for the first time, there wasn't really somebody there, like, just to step in. There was kind of a power vacuum. We've talked about power vacuums. Let me repeat that one more time. There were no heirs of Domitian or any generals trying to take over. Letter B. The Senate actually appointed Nerva as emperor. Now, this was very unusual. The Senate had no power, and the only time they had power was when there was no emperor. So in this situation, you've got a situation where there's no emperor, and so they have some power. And so they appoint Nerva as emperor, which was just, like I said, kind of crazy. In fact, they were like, wait, seriously? We can do this? Nobody's going to question us? No. And they did. They picked Nerva, and they made a really good choice. Letter C. He was in his 60s when he was appointed. He was in his 60s when he was appointed. So, he's not some young thing. He's not some Caligula, some little boots, or some fresh military general like Titus. He's been around, okay? He has experience. He was in his 60s when he was appointed. Letter D. He was a wise and courageous leader, but ruled for less than 2 years. He died. That's what happened, unexpectedly. He was a wise and courageous leader, but he only ruled for less than 2 years, but he ruled for less than 2 years. Wise and courageous leader, but he ruled for less than 2 years. So you might be thinking, why is he considered one of the 5 goods? What did he do that was good? I'm about to tell you. Letter E is going to be this. This is the reason that he started the good emperor. So he was a wise and courageous leader, but he ruled less than 10 years. So what did he do that put him in a position to be considered a 5 good emperor? Letter E, he started a new tradition of adopting a good heir to take over as emperor. He started a new tradition of adopting a good heir, H-E-I-R, to take over as emperor. He started a good heir. He started a good tradition, a new tradition of adopting a good heir to take over as emperor. Started a new tradition of adopting a good heir to take over as emperor. This means no more snotty rich kids or emperor's kids to take over and do what they want, be a little Nero or a little Caligula, or any of those guys. You're not going to have that problem anymore, because this person, the emperor was going to choose someone who was wise, who was older, who would be a good pick for the most part. And if they did that, then it was probably going to be a pretty seamless transition. So letter F, he made a good choice and adopted Trajan. He made a good choice and adopted Trajan. Trajan is spelled right below, T-R-A-J-A-N. He made a good choice and adopted Trajan. So, we see Trajan here is our first pick, and it's kind of a testing ground. Is it going to work? Was this a good idea? Is this method going to be tried and true? And it was. It worked. Trajan was great, and not because he was, rich or the son of an emperor. No, because he had been chosen because he was a good leader. And it wasn't just because of his last name or because of his money, it was because of his leadership qualities, and that's why he was chosen. So letter A, he was a trusted military commander. He was a trusted military commander. Keep in mind, these men are not related as emperor. They are adopted officially as a son because they had to make it legal to pass it on, but these weren't their biological children. Okay, they did have biological children. They had real children, but their children were not chosen. He was a trusted military commander. Letter B. He was humble and treated the senators as equals. He was humble and treated the senators as equals. So he's taking a page out of Octavian's book, Caesar Augustus. Remember, Octavian/Caesar Augustus, he was the one that treated the senators well, the tribunes well, and he made everyone think that they actually had power, when in fact he had all the power. And so that disarmed them, that made them like him, that made them think that they actually had a say in things. When in true reality, Trajan was pulling the strings. He was running the show. Let me repeat B. He was humble and treated the senators as equals. Letter C. The government was in debt, so he gave up his own wealth and luxury. The government was in debt, so he gave up his own wealth and luxury. This is the guy right here, let me tell you. It would be like, Bill Gates becoming our president and giving up his own money to pay off the national debt. It would be incredible. And unfortunately, we know Bill Gates' fortune wouldn't really put a whole lot of it into the national debt. If you've forgotten how much the national debt is, imagine you had $1 million in your hand. Yeah? A suitcase with $1 million. Pretty cool. Imagine if you had 16 million suitcases with $1 million in it. That's our national debt, $16 trillion. Anyway, so Trajan went... he actually used his own money to pay off Rome's debt, which was huge, very humble, very giving. It just shows his servant heart in Rome. The government was in debt, so he gave up his own wealth and luxury. He was not like Tiberius, who essentially retired because he was lazy and nervous, and went and lived in an island in luxury and just shirked his responsibilities. No, he took his responsibilities as a leader seriously. And he gave up his own wealth to make sure that Rome wasn't in financial trouble. Now remember, I keep speaking really well of these guys. They are not Christians, okay? They may be great leaders, but they're not great people. Please keep that in mind. I know I tend to speak very highly of the 5 good emperors, but I'm speaking very highly in comparison to Nero, who tried to murder his mother 4 times, who murdered his wife, who burned Christian. I'm comparing him to these guys. So compared to Nero and Caligula and some of the other guys we're going to talk about later, these guys are angelic. But remember, they are not believers in Christ. They are not very moral men. They're not always kind to the people around them. They're good leaders, but that's probably about it. So do keep that in mind. Letter D. He spent much of his time securing Rome's boundaries. Remember, the past 100 years, we're really more than that since Octavian, probably 100 years. Rome and the military had kind of lapsed. You have crazy people like Caligula trying to conquer the ocean. You have people like Tiberius who's not doing anything. You have people like Domitian who's more focused on inner politics. And so you don't see the military aspects being carried out as well, unlike under Julius Caesar or Caesar Augustus. So letter D, he spent much of his time securing Rome's boundaries. What that means is, it's kind of like if you've got a bunch of property, and maybe your neighbor has animals that are coming over and eating on your property, and you're securing your boundaries. I mean, going out, you're pushing the animals off, and you're going to build a fence. You're not conquering more land. You're just making sure that the land you already had is secure and yours. And so that's what Trajan was invested in. Letter E, he died of a sickness and left his rule to Hadrian. He died of a sickness and left his rule to Hadrian. Now, Hadrian, once again, he was picked, he was chosen. He was not the son of Trajan. He was chosen to be an heir. So, the system is being carried on. It worked well for Trajan. He's now going to push it, and it's going to work very well for Hadrian. He died of a sickness and left his rule to Hadrian. Letter F. There is an arch in Rome commemorating his rule. There is an arch in Rome commemorating his rule. Arch is A-R-C-H, obviously. Commemorating is C-O-M-M-E-M-O-R-A-T-I-N-G. There is an arch in Rome commemorating his rule. And we've talked about what arches look like. We talked about the Arch of Titus last week. It's very similar to that. It's a single arch with one opening. We'll look at it in one of our last 2 PowerPoint days. We have 2 PowerPoint days coming up at the end of the year here. And we'll look at the arch, or Trajan's arch, somewhere in there. Okay, Hadrian. So Hadrian comes next. You see for Hadrian, letter A, what I'd like to put is, he did not expand the empire. He did not expand the empire. Alright, sorry, I had to get up and move. There's people coming in and out of my little bending corner. He did not expand the empire. Now, that was actually a problem with some of his troops. A lot of his troops had an issue with that. Because not only did he not expand the empire, but he actually kind of gave up some of the land that Rome had already conquered. And you might be asking yourself, why on earth would somebody do that? Why would they give up their own land? Well, it would be as if, pretend the United States owned Canada. Not that we do or ever will, but imagine the United States owned Canada. But Canada's really big. I don't know if you looked on a map recently, but Canada's massive. And imagine, we didn't have enough troops to actually keep Canada secure, or to keep Canada defended, that we own now. So maybe we just decide, we don't want Canada. We can't defend it properly. We can't keep it up, so we're going to give it back. That's kind of what Hadrian was saying. He's like, listen, we've got all these territories, and we don't do anything in them, and we don't have the troops right now to hold them up. Let's go ahead and cut our losses for now and strengthen the other territories that are valuable to us, maybe places that have resources we want, or that are on good trade routes. And so let's keep the stuff that we really like, and let's give up some of the rest. It's kind of like cleaning out your closet. You've got 300 shirts in there, and you only wear 30 of them, so why don't you get rid of a bunch of the others? You don't need to wear them. Go ahead and focus on wearing the shirts you like. Not quite the same thing, but hopefully you get the point. So letter A, he did not expand the empire. Number 1, some land that he gave up includes Great Britain. Capital G, capital B. Great Britain. That's, of course, the big island where England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales are. There's people yelling across the way. I'm looking to see if there's any cool drama going on. Oh, there's a fight. I'm going to have to sign off right now. Okay, that was kind of strange. There was a nice fight over there. I have no idea what you'd be fighting over in a hospital. I sit kind of in this little vending area. You can see these windows. That's sort of the main entrance down there. And then right across is the visitor waiting room. which I actually thought about doing the lecture there tonight, and I'm so glad I didn't, because you'd have gotten a front row seat to a fight. It wasn't that much of a fight. There was a lot of shoving. It's probably a disagreement. We'll see. Anyway, back to the much less exciting subject of Rome. That's right. I believe we left off talking about Hadrian and Great Britain. So, getting my mind back around this, alright, Great Britain. Once again, it's Great, capital G, and it's Britain, B-R-I-T-A-I-N. Number 2, once again, number 1 was some of the land that he gave up includes Great Britain. Number 2, he pulled back and built a wall between Roman territory and Pict territory. I'll explain that in just a second. He pulled back and built a wall between Roman territory and Pict territory. Roman territory and Pict territory. Pict is P-I-C-T. The Picts were a really warlike group of people. I'm trying to think how to describe them. They painted their faces up blue, kind of like Braveheart blue, and they kind of fought sort of guerrilla warfare tactics and a lot of the woods, and were very, very formidable. They knew the territory very well, and Rome came in with their big legions and their big numbers and just got picked off by these guys. No pun intended, picked off. But he built this wall, Hadrian did, across most of the island of Great Britain. Let me repeat that. He pulled back and built a wall between Roman territory and Pict territory. Number 3, the wall remains today, and is called Hadrian's Wall. The wall remains today, and it's called Hadrian's Wall. I've been to it, seen many sections of it. Some of it is massive, big pieces still there, 8 feet tall, nice and thick. Other bits, it's merely just piles of stones where you can see where the run of it was. The wall remains today, and it's called Hadrian's Wall. I'm going to point about Hadrian that I forgot. It's not on the lecture, but I'm sure you've all heard of the Adriatic Sea that's right next to Italy. It runs down the coast of Italy. It's actually, Adriatic was originally the Hadriatic Sea, named for the Emperor Hadrian. I thought I'd throw that out there at you. Anyway, letter B. He executed senators for plotting against him. So he was not Mr. Jovial, nice to all the senators like Trajan was. And there's a reason that he did this. Let me repeat the point. He executed senators for plotting against him. Remember, the Senate had condemned Nero to death. The Senate had chosen Nerva. The Senate was friends with Trajan. Hadrian had to make sure that he asserted his authority. Now, do I think execution for plotting is a bit extreme? Yes, absolutely. That is not, in my opinion, a death-deserving penalty. But he needed to kind of show some strength so that the senators knew that there was a line. And plotting against him is definitely crossing that line. So obviously he should have had some sort of punishment doled out to them. Once again, execution would be quite a bit harsh. But let me repeat B. He executed senators for plotting against him. Letter C. This point kind of wraps up the feel of Hadrian's rule. He wanted to make everything secure in the empire. He wanted to make everything secure in the empire. Remember, his military strategies, he worked on security. His internal strategies, getting rid of executing senators that posed a threat. He's all about feeling secure and being secure. He wanted to make everything secure in the empire. He wasn't about being big and bold and rich. He was about being safe and secure and stable. Letter D. He was very well educated and enjoyed learning. This is a new thing. He's not what we're going to call a philosopher king. That'll come with our 2 emperors from now. A philosopher king is one that really is a thinker instead of a military man. Hadrian's a military man, but he's very much a thinker as well, which is unusual. Most of these guys are very brutish. They're educated, but they don't enjoy the finer things of life, and they don't enjoy the classics and learning from the past. Hadrian did. He was very well educated and enjoyed learning. Letter E. This is my favorite thing he did. He built the Pantheon. He built the Pantheon. The Pantheon is this monstrosity of a building. It is maybe 5 stories tall. The way it is it's round, a bird's eye view. It goes up for 3 sections. 1, 2, 3, and has a dome on the top. So you've got this round domed section. In the front, it's got a traditional Greek-looking pillars, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a little triangular piece at the top, a pediment. So imagine you're looking straight on the Greek temple, and then behind it you see this big dome in the side. So it's absolutely huge, and it's beautiful.
I've studied it for years, absolutely love it. I've seen many pictures, we'll look at tons of them. When I was there in January, I believe it was January the 5th of this year, we had been pickpocketed a couple days before in Rome, and so we didn't have a whole lot of money. We weren't able to transport around the city. We eventually were able to get some money, and you all heard the story. And so we went and had dinner at a wonderful place Mr. Geiger had suggested where the seniors were at just a couple weeks ago. And right down the street, literally a couple blocks, is the Pantheon. So the sad thing was, after all the years of studying it, I was not able to go in it because, of course, by the time we got money and were able to travel, it was dark, it was closed. But I did get to see the outside, and it's absolutely massive. It's so cool. You're just like walking through a little alleyway, and then all of a sudden I could kind of look down, and I saw like a little piece of marbles, a marble building coming out, and then you just, bam, you're out in the open, and there's the Pantheon. So we'll look at some pictures of it. Honestly, it's impossible to photograph when you're right in front of it. You have to get on top of a building nearby because it's so big. You can't get far enough away from it to get it. So I didn't get to take any pictures of it because, because I forgot my camera that night. But I didn't get to take any pictures of it. I wouldn't have been able to because it's just so absolutely massive. Anyway, back to Hadrian. That was like, once again, like my favorite thing he did was to build the Pantheon. Letter F. He wanted to rebuild Jerusalem from Titus's attack. He wanted to rebuild Jerusalem from Titus's attack. And we talked about Titus. His arch showed the inside which we'll look at. You haven't seen yet. The inside of it shows the Roman soldiers carrying the treasures of the Temple of Jerusalem. And Titus sacked the city. I want to say the year was 70 AD, 70 or 79 off the top of my head. And so, letter F. Hadrian, he wanted to rebuild Jerusalem from Titus's attack. He had these grand plans for Jerusalem because Jerusalem is actually a crossroad of the world. It's a crossroad from the west to the east. You know, it sits right in that area where trade comes from now and then, from Asia, from the Middle East, Asia Minor, Africa, Europe. All of it meets in Jerusalem, so it's a pretty important city. Number one, his plan was for a grand Roman city. His plan was for a grand Roman city. His plan was for a grand Roman city. He had big ideas. Number two, he built a shrine for Jupiter where the temple had been in Jerusalem. You've got to remember, he wasn't doing this as an insult to the Jews. Now, how would the Jews have seen this? An insult. I mean, that's how they would have viewed this. It was insulting to them. But the thing with the Romans, even though the Jews gave them problems, the Romans loved Jewish religion. Not because they loved Yahweh or believed in God or Jesus, but because they thought it was cool because it was so old. Pretty much anything that was old, the Romans loved. They thought it was more legitimate if it was old. In a way that they were right. Age tends to give legitimacy to things. So the Romans loved the rich traditions of Judaism. And so it wasn't an insult, as in the Romans didn't mean it to be an insult to build this temple of Jupiter on the shrine, or on the temple spot of Jerusalem, even though it is very insulting. They meant it as more of an honor on the sacred ground. Let me repeat too. He built a shrine for Jupiter where the temple had been in Jerusalem. He built a shrine for Jupiter where the temple had been in Jerusalem. The unfortunate thing about Hadrian is he kind of became a grumpy old man in his old age, and he became kind of cruel. He still picked somebody, like everyone else. He didn't break the rule. Picked a good guy. But he kind of became a cranky old man. Letter G, he became cruel in his old age. He became cruel. And by cruel, I mean he was harsh in his dealings. His judgments were fierce. Execution was common. He didn't have a lot of mercy or compassion, which is something you have to have as well. Let me repeat G, he became cruel in his old age. Letter H. His first choice for heir died at a young age. So he actually chose someone who died unexpectedly, which was not that uncommon back then. But his first choice for heir, H-E-I-R, died at a young age. So Hadrian is now left with having to select a second heir, which is never fun. I mean, you now got to find somebody else because it's hard to find one person that you think would be good. But his second choice was excellent. His second choice for emperor after him, this is letter I, the second choice for emperor after him was Antoninus Pius. The second choice for the emperor after him was Antoninus Pius. Let me spell Antoninus Pius for you in just a second. His second choice for emperor after him was Antoninus Pius. Antoninus Pius is Antoninus. Let me repeat Antoninus. Antoninus, and then space Pius, capital Pius. Pius. Now, Pius means humble. And actually, that was the nickname. His name was Antoninus, and Pius was the name given to him because of the way that he was. He was very gentle and humble. And so we'll talk about Antoninus Pius and Marcus Aurelius, which are the final two of the 5 good emperors. You're probably very familiar with Marcus Aurelius if you've seen the film Gladiator. There's a lot of truth in the movie Gladiator, a lot of accuracy. But Marcus Aurelius is that philosopher king, the wise old man at the very end, or at the very beginning, who was actually killed. And if you remember correctly, in the film, he's killed trying to pass on the emperorship, just like the rest before him. Now, in history, I don't think that actually happened, but we'll talk about that more tomorrow. Okay, so you are now 1 lecture away from having everything for your test. I really would highly suggest that you be studying for your test. I have no idea if you have history homework, so please be mindful to look on your syllabus and on your headline to see if you have history homework. I doubt it. I usually don't give it this close to the test, but I'm not sure. So please take a look at that. Study for your test. 4 short answers. You can now start answering the 4th one. 1 8-sentence essay, 18 or so terms, 5 lectures. Please get moving on that. Okay, you don't want to leave for the night before, or the last night. Okay, so in wrap up, the 5 good emperors, the thing that made them good, the thing that gave them this title was because of the fact that they chose an heir using wisdom. They didn't just say, whoever's next to me, my son, my nephew, whatever. They made plans. They made plans for after them, which is very important. All of your parents, I hope, are making plans so that hopefully way down the line, when they do eventually pass away, they'll make plans for the will and things to happen after them. That's just wisdom. That's helping out the people after you. Because the people that pass away, these emperors, they don't have to worry about what comes next because they're dead. But if they're wise, then in life they're going to prepare for the people that come after them. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.